Hello, and welcome everybody to another meeting of the MCAT Club. My name is Osborne. I am the owner of a company called INQUARTA. People call me a medical school admissions expert, consultant, coach, all-around good guy. And I work with students who really want to get into medical school, but may be stuck, or maybe they feel uncertain about parts of their application profile, and they'd like to get some really useful, really helpful advice from somebody with a wide range of experience, specifically in medical school admissions. So today, Jason, I want to talk about a phone call I got this week.
Okay.
And here's the phone call I got. I got a call from my dad, right? And let me know, you may have gotten calls like this as well, right? He's the father of a pre-med. And when he called me, this is what I want to talk about on today's call. So let me say that the dad's name is Steve, and his son, the student's name is Rick, okay?
Okay.
So Steve calls me up and says, look, my son is burned out on the MCAT. He's so discouraged, especially about the MCAT Verbal. Is there any way you can help him out? And I want to talk with you a minute, Jason, about what I'm going to tell the son, Rick. Is that okay? Does that make sense?
Sure, yeah.
Because here's what I want to say. It's specific to the verbal piece of it, right? Number one, it's really easy to think that and believe that, once a student, once I've learned from a test prep company or wherever a process of elimination approach, I understand POE, and I learned that there are question types, and I learned that there's, slightly different ways of looking at the answers based upon the question types. Once I've learned all that, it's very easy to think and believe that I've learned everything there is to learn about understanding reading comprehension, understanding verbal reasoning. And so I'm going to talk with Rick, the son, the student, a lot about the whole concept of, there's stuff that you don't know.
Yeah.
And so, one of the big problems that could be discouraging for him is he thinks he knows everything there is to know about verbal reasoning. And so he's like, I know everything there is to know about verbal reasoning. I'm doing these practice tests. My score's not going up. I'm getting 6, 7s in verbal all the time. I'm never going to, get past this. My life is over. I'm not going to be a doctor. And you know what? I feel fat. So I want to talk to Rick, and I want to say to him, look, here's number one. There are things that you might not know about verbal reasoning that no one's ever shared with you. And I want to go through a bunch of them with him. One of them, first I'm going to say, look, we already know what we already know, right? Which is, verbal reasoning it's a strategy based upon a couple of things. It's based upon timing. You got to figure out how long you spend on each passage, and it's based upon process of elimination, POE. You got to be able to go through answer choices, eliminate 2, get down to 2, and then pick. So that's the basics of $2,000 MCAT prep courses. It's just that little bit, right? Okay, so what else is there? Well, there's a bunch, right? And the first big piece that I talk about with students has to do with vocabulary. Now, if you don't have a college or to some degree even a graduate level of vocabulary, it's going to be hard. Because some of the passages are built on peer-reviewed academic journals, and the vocabulary is pretty elaborate, right? It goes beyond, what you're going to read in most newspapers. So,
most definitely.
I'm going to talk to him about, you got to build your vocabulary a little bit. But more important than building your vocabulary is you got to really begin to build your understanding of second definitions of words and unusual connotations of words. Because there's no easier way for me to fool you than to choose to use a word in a way that you've never heard me use it before or never heard anybody use it before. I don't have an example off the top of my head, but let's say a pride of lions. And for whatever reason, you think I mean that lions are proud. But really what I mean is, the word pride in this context is the term that's used when you want to talk about a family of lions living together. That's called a pride.
Yeah.
So there's all this stuff that, if you're a MCAT verbal test writer, you're going to go look for either words like this or phrases that can be interpreted in multiple ways and manipulate that interpretation. So that's one thing I want to talk about is denotation and connotation that's unexpected. But what's more important to me than that is the story that I have going into this test. And what I mean by the story that I have is, what are my beliefs and what are my expectations, and what do I think is, quote-unquote, the truth or, quote-unquote, the fact, the reality about, in this case, MCAT verbal. We touched on this briefly in 3 calls ago, I think, you and I.
Yeah.
When we talked about, I'm going to go into the verbal reasoning section knowing as a fact that I'm not going to do very well. And we addressed this as well in organic chemistry. Knowing as a fact, knowing as a point of, unviolatable rule that I'm going to suck at organic chemistry. So that story will override almost everything.
Oh, yeah.
And your mind and whatever else is going to do a lot in order to help that story come true so that your belief about what is, about how the world works, will not get, your gears won't get stripped and your beliefs won't get violated.
Yeah.
So if I go into this like Steve's son is going into this, defeated, discouraged, dejected, basically he thinks he knows everything there is to know, so there's no hope because he's tried everything, nothing works.
Yeah.
And so he knows, well, I tried everything, nothing works, so my life is over, it's not going to be a good story, I'm going to have a bad experience. I promise he's going to have a bad experience. And it's going to take a lot to shift him out of that story.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do is I want to tell him that his story is a lie.
Yeah.
And that, part of the problem is he's going at this thing. I mean, and believe me, he's got some evidence to support his position. He's going at this thing believing that he can't do verbal reasoning. And, he's going to point to his past test results to confirm that. And what I'm saying is that he's misunderstanding his data. His past test results have nothing to do with his ability to do verbal reasoning right now. His past test results confirm his story.